80s, I guess, so it would have been those 80s Herculoids, but they were part of the Saturday morning cartoons you would see. You know, I was partial to Thundar the Barbarian, but I always liked the Herculoids as well.
You really hoped, because it was the same sort of thing. It was called some Space Stars or something, and it was... You really hoped that Thundar the Barbarian came up, because it would rotate around. And you were pretty psyched when it was the Herculoids, and then Teen Star, Space something that would... Well,
Herculoids would get the job done. Space Ghost would get the job done. Thundar was my shit. But the problem with all these shows, and I haven't read the reasoning why, but they would go to all these trouble to make shows and then make like 13 of them and then just run the ever-loving shit out and not make more ever. Just be like, that's Thundar.
I think that's the Hanna-Barbera model. It's like, this one's still, from 67, still pulling a number. Why would we make new ones?
But they would have like no overarching storyline. You could tune in at any time. It was always standalone. So it seemed like easy to keep making more. They just
it's easier to not make more.
Let's make wacky races. Like so. As a kid, that was your... I mean, kids today, they don't even know how good they have it, but basically, back in the day, that was your diet of action cartoons, was whatever shit was on in syndication or was on Saturday morning on CBS and then later on USA Network that they would just throw on. And you watched all of it, whether you liked it or not, because it was the only shit
because you had no other choice.
You watched that until Soul Train came on, and if you were me, you watched Soul Train and changed the channel when wrestling came on. But... you know, most of my friends changed the channel when Soul Train would come on, and then they would call my house and be like, "Can Jason hang out?" And I'd be like, "Nah, watch Soul Train. Soul Train's on." But then after
call
that,
back in a half an hour.
But yeah, I mean, it was so for me. It was a show from my childhood. So when we had the opportunity to put it on roulette, we were like, "Oh yeah!" And Galaxy Trio, I distinctly remember all of us at Toonami being like, there's this whole other
I never
space
saw
cartoon.
Galaxy Trio as a kid.
None of us had even heard of it, and we were like, "Well, why aren't we showing that?" And our own library was like, "Oh yeah, we got like 20 episodes. I guess we could give you those." We were like, "Yeah."
I'm going to get the names wrong because it's been too long now, but for a long time, my favorite Toonami story, behind the scenes wise, was me going into BOC, which is where at the time all the tapes lived, and they run now. It's all computers, but it was this woman who was the Standards and Practices liaison then, saying, like, I've spent the last 2 years learning all of the people in the show, and you can't have this sales thing next to... And she pointed and she called one of the Herculoids, and I was like, that's the person from Galaxy Trio. So are we done here? And she said we were, and it was totally fine. So not a great story, but a great...
Not always a great corporate strategy to just fucking show someone there, just cut someone's throat, but it worked out for us.
Works all right when you're 23. And
so yeah, I think Roulette only lasted about a year. It
was longer because it was also on Midnight Run for a time.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe 99, 2000 as far as...
and then Herculoids moved to Boomerang for years and years, and most of the YouTube clips you can find online of Herculoids all have the Boomerang logo, so obviously the Hanna-Barbera library in general on Boomerang. I would watch new Herculoids if someone were to reimagine. I think there's not much story, but the characters are good, and you could pretty easily create a backstory and have a good action cartoon of the Herculoids, I think.
18 and 40 years later, 20 years later, make another 11 and then run those for 40 years.
But in general, Herculoids, we salute you for your service to Toonami, and I will always look back upon that show fondly.
Childkind, the world over.
Yeah, good stuff.
So that was our fantasy show, look back, tenuous
it's a fantasy show / science fiction.
Where we are now, which is our question of the week, which is... What's your favorite fantasy TV show / movie? And as always, these are some of our choices.
Yeah.
And I believe, Jason, you were going to go first today?
I thought I would start with the easiest pick, the most obvious pick, just to get it out of the way, because, you know, we never like to be too obvious, but there is one reigning champ in this category I think almost anyone would acknowledge, so best to just get it out of the way. So I thought we would just show a little clip from this and sort of says it all. Let's just throw to this. So, still one of my favorite, a very early viral video from the first Lord of the Rings movie, looping simply one phrase. That thing has brought me so much joy. So yeah, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, obviously the Lord of the Rings Tolkien books are the reigning king of fantasy, influenced 90% of all fantasy afterwards. Great books, and Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy actually did them justice. Then he went back and fucked it all up with The Hobbit, but we won't talk about the Hobbit trilogy. So the Lord of the Rings trilogy, though, it deserves it. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, though, classic, holds up very well. Most of the effects hold up pretty well. I, as a huge Tolkien nerd, when those movies came out, I was really nervous because they were huge for me, like a million and trillion other people as a youth.
Yeah, and you were nervous. It's like after the first, you're like, but can they keep it going? And then
and they did.
Yeah,
they're all great. They all hold up. All three films are great movies in their own right, and all stand up as a trilogy. My personal favorite is still the first one because I like the more epic feel of the last two movies, and the huge battles are awesome. But I like the kind of creepiness and the actual smaller journey of the first movie of the Fellowship's just starting to figure out just how screwed they are and how everything starts to go wrong. Like, I really like the way that movie is paced. So,
is that your favorite book as well?
No, actually. I mean, I read them all as one book, so I kind of look at them all as one book. My favorite part is probably around the Two Towers, where he's bouncing back and forth between everybody. Every time I read it, I'm always like, oh, I'll just put it down. Oh, no, I just find this next part. What's happening to Merry and Pippin? I also wanted to show a quick clip, or it's like a 2-minute clip, but what are you going to do?
Quickish.
Which for me sums up one of the things that makes these movies awesome is I always envisioned the Balrog, which is the shadow creature that confronts the Fellowship at the end of the first movie. I always envisioned it in a particular way, and these guys it wasn't what I thought of it would be at all, but it was 10 times better. And for me, that's sort of the attention to detail that they used, not only with their CG work, but just involving all the original guys who worked on the illustrations and paintings for Tolkien's early conceptual stuff. I just think is awesome. So here's the scene where the Balrog of Morgoth reveals himself. Yeah, so I mean, just the filmmaking technique-wise, you've seen Gandalf be a total badass, and then literally the second, even if you've never read the books, literally the second he's like, oh shit, and he just was like, run!
I like how they don't, when he's like, this foe's beyond any of us, and they're like, what does that mean?
And he goes, run!
And they're like, oh
it
shit!
means we're getting the hell out of here! And how they cut to Legolas, who's an elf, and previous to that point, you've never seen him scared of anything. And they cut to Legolas, and he's scared shitless, and you're like, something bad's coming.
Yeah, can't
just good filmmaking.
foot your way around.
It's too bad he lost it. But, so Lord of the Rings, obvious choice. One of the biggest influences on fantasy, the biggest influence on fantasy, unquestionably. So,
and one we hadn't already
yes, shockingly, we hadn't already talked about it. So we can move on from that. My second choice is also kind of an obvious choice, but less so than Lord of the Rings. It is the third Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which was directed by Alfonso Cuarón, and I think is the best of the Harry Potter movies. I like the Harry Potter movies, not really the first and second one very much, but this one...
Once they flushed Chris Columbus
well, yeah, it's
process.
like... I mean, the first two are basically straight-up children's movies, and I understand why. And then this book is the first one where things start to sort of get a little bit more grown-up, and...
Yeah, as he ages up and they age up, what happens in the books.
Yeah, and he becomes
they get
more
a real
aware of...
director involved in the process.
And then from here on, this kind of set the template for the other Harry Potter movies where they basically got a... And now for the Marvel movies where they find a real director and not one who just does popcorn movies. They find a quote-unquote like real director and say, you take on this giant project and bring some humanity to it when it could have just become a giant machine. And Alfonso Cuarón did a bunch of stuff. He made all the actors write their whole backstory and do all this deep character work that they had never done. And I think it shows in their performances. And I just think as a Harry Potter movie, this is the one that is the tightest. It leaves out a whole lot from the book, but it basically is a good template for keeping true to the spirit of a book without
hitting
giving
every
you every
detail.
single detail. I think it holds up well as still the best of the Harry Potter movies. I also like the last two a lot, but by then they had the weight of 10 years worth of storytelling, so it's hard to say if those are as good of movies as they are just vehicles for delivery of that story. But as far as fantasy entertainment goes, I would say other than Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter is clearly the most popular fantasy thing in the last long time, other than a couple other Game of Thrones maybe. But
when kids are 40 and 50, they're going to remember where they were reading all the Harry Potter books. And reading them over and over and over.
So regardless of how you feel about the books, I think the movies are fun, entertaining popcorn movies. So let's check out the trailer for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So, it was funny to watch the marketing. It's like before they realized it was okay if they let it be a little dark.
Yeah, that this is like still fanciful, like night bus.
They're like, all kinds of fun things are happening. But Harry Potter fans always bring up that the time turner, the thing that Hermione has in this, is basically it's like a MacGuffin that breaks if you actually, like, no one really cares except the hardcore fans, but if you actually think about it, it breaks all the Harry Potter movies because you could just use that shit to undo everything bad. Like,
you can only use it 5 times and then time explodes.
So yeah, that's my second choice. And then for my third choice, a little less of an obvious choice. Obvious if you're an anime fan, maybe, but I wanted to highlight.
Odds are everyone watching this is.
Sure, good point. I wanted to highlight Record of Lodoss War, which is one of my favorite fantasy things. So Lodoss War was an OVA. I believe it was 13 episodes. And it was in the late 80s, early 90s. And then they sort of retold the story in a 27-episode series in the 90s. We tried to get it for Toonami multiple times, but for whatever reason, I can't remember who the rights holders were. We just couldn't work it out.
Bunch of dicks.
It was not a really great dub, as I recall, and but it's sort of the first anime pure fantasy, high fantasy anime that I can recall seeing. I mean, you could say that some Miyazaki, like, Nausicaa's kind of fantasy, although it's kind of more science fiction. But this was like European fantasy style. Like, basically, Lodoss War came from. Basically, they published a D&D playthrough where they sort of wrote out what happened, and it became so popular that the guy who published it turned it into a series of novels. So there's 3 novels of Lodoss War. This anime is based off of those novels, but it's very much the classic Dungeons & Dragons. Like, there's an elf, there's a cleric, there's a dwarf, like the classic sort of Dungeons & Dragons tropes. And it was so close. Basically, they had to create their own sort of fake Dungeons and Dragons to say they based this off of, because they were worried that it was so Dungeons and Dragons they would get sued. But it's a really beautifully animated. It's super old school looking. I mean, it looks very 80s, early 90s, and it's weirdly like there's not a lot of animation, and it's like they saved it just for the battles, so the battles look super fluid, but then in between the battles it's lots of slow pans, like
just like the Hobbit movies.
Yeah, we're saving money 80s style. But I think it's a great fantasy anime. I think it's a classic of that genre, and sort of after that came more fantasy anime. Like after Lodoss was sort of the first one that opened the floodgates, and then you had shows like Slayers, which we also tried to get, or Berserk, or like all the other fantasy anime, all the way up until Attack on Titan is a fantasy anime. I guess some could say it's science fiction. We don't really know yet, but from where I'm standing, it's a fantasy anime. Sword Art Online, which is science fiction but set in a sort of fantasy setting. This show was the one that laid the template for all of those. So if you haven't got a chance to check out Record of Lodoss War, you should. It's really good. I think it's kind of hard to track down. The last I looked, you could get a shitty DVD from Century Park Media. But they were gonna, just because it's old, they were gonna re-release it on Blu-ray, but it fell through, so maybe there'll be a Kickstarter or something. But if you can get your mitts on Record of Lodoss War, I prefer the OVA to the series. The OVA basically caught up with the novels, and they had to invent their own ending. So of course there's is it filler? I don't know. But it was before anyone gave a shit about filler. So I think they did a better job with the OVA. The actual show sticks exactly to the text of the manga, so that's not
So it's
filler.
better.
Yeah, so it's
Canon.
better. It's clearly better. So if you're interested, they're both good, but I prefer the OVA. So that is my
You
final
prefer
choice.
Lodos's early work.
I prefer Lodos's early stuff, yeah. Before they got too commercial.
Do you want to show your clip?
Oh, yeah. I have a clip from the show. I think it's just a promo, so let's just show that. You can get a feel for what it looks like. I love old promos. It's so slow, just like, here's
And you-
some stuff.
No idea what's going on.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
basically,
people were lining up to sue Lodos War.
basically the Lord of the Rings, the anime, and well worth watching as a result. So those are my 3 choices for some of my favorite fantasy films and television shows. Gil?
Solid work. Up first for me is a movie that I first saw as a young lad and has stuck with me over the years, and that is The Princess Bride. That's Andre the Giant should be our permanent guest host. I never read the book. Did you read the book?
Yeah, but after I had not read the book when I saw the movie. I read the book later as I was just
Curiosity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I to the point where when the movie first came out, I was like, "Is this even a book? Is this?" I didn't know how far down the rabbit hole they were going in reading the book.
Yeah.
But we
Pretty
have
dark, turns out.
Yeah, we have a scene from the movie that we can check out, and then we can talk a little about The Princess Bride. The little fun fact that they based that scene around Jason and I fighting early on, except it didn't turn out as well for me. They changed the ending to be more.
I just brained Go with a rock.
Yeah,
and
it just faded to
look
black.
at the
from very
result. He
beginning.
can barely talk now.
But yeah, Princess Bride still holds up in honor of Andre the Giant, legendary booze man.
man.
There's some fun.
Man, there's some
Drinking games
amazing,
for
there's
Princess
amazing
Bride.
Andre stories out there if you ever want to go down the internet.
But yeah, so
Deep
that
hole.
one of my favorite fantasy movies.
Awesome movie.
Up next, I don't remember my order, is this is probably not a huge surprise. Almost feels like cheating, but since we'd already left out all the Star Wars movies and a bunch of other fantasy stuff that we talked to death, we're going to do Game of Thrones.
Game of Owns.
Of Thrones owns. Great books, and also seemingly about to be outstripped TV show in terms of plot.
I mean, I guess everyone's going to stop watching because it's just
just gonna
filler.
be filler.
It's all filler at this point.
yeah, bad news,
It's off.
Game of Thrones
yeah,
fans.
I mean, they're just going beyond the text,
No
which
longer
obviously makes it
canon
filler, right?
television show.
Yeah. Guess all the weebs aren't going to tune in.
But sister network HBO seemingly doing very well for themselves.
It's doing
with
very well.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they're
Single-handedly
they do
brought
all right.
about HBO now. Just
Pretty much.
please stop stealing our show.
Please stop stealing Game of Thrones. Here's a streaming service.
Here's a way that you can just pay us
Oh,
$9.
whoops, it crashed. Yeah, Game of Thrones is awesome. Also, a big fan of the show and the books. I like the books better, but
Yeah,
they're both great.
It's I haven't gone back to reread the books again in a year or two because I just kind of feel like I'm now in TV show land and I want to just see where this journey goes and
Yeah.
then go back and reread the books
Yeah.
afterwards. But this is a scene from Game of Thrones that just sort of encapsulates
What
some
season?
of.
What season?
This is from season 4,
Okay.
I believe.
Drama.
The Dink kicking ass with words.
The
and
dink.
waiting for another sword to bail him out.
I like the dink.
But yeah, so I can't imagine anyone watching the show is not
Hasn't
already
seen
watching Game of Thrones.
yeah.
But if you haven't, you're really fucking it up. So get it together and start watching Game of Thrones. And my last choice for some of my favorite fantasy TV shows and movies is another childhood favorite that stands the test of time that I still love today, and that is The Secret of Nim.
Nice.
Oh yeah, so we have
That's Brutus.
yeah.
Brutus and Mrs. Brisby.
This is a really hard to find clips for.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or
There's a
was-
remastered
for me.
DVD at Blu-ray out there.
There's no. Either they're very litigious in their YouTube gathering, or
Don
there's-
Bloom.
people just don't put it up, or it's a
Well,
lot
I mean,
of.
it isn't a movie that a lot of
It's
this,
a lot of fan recreations and sort of weird fan-made behind-the-scenes clips.
Oh, really?
But
I mean, there isn't a lot of This was Don Bluth, and it was released through Disney, as I recall, I think.
Yeah.
And so Disney kind of sat on it for a long time.
Yes,
and
it was 1982, and then
didn't give it like a proper release, really.
I think I saw it either on video or on Disney Channel, more like mid 80s, probably.
Yeah.
I did not see it in the theater. If it even, I don't know.
It was on. I mean, it was on Disney or HBO or whatever all the time.
Yeah. So my brother and I watched
Yeah.
this a ton, and I
Me too.
have since seen it a million times. But here is, I believe, the trailer, which doesn't really do it as much justice as it deserves, but we can check it out.
Aurora and Don Bluth Productions present a classic adventure in motion picture entertainment. It's a fantasy with wizards and villains and heroes. It's an odyssey to another world. A world of fantasy and enchantment. It's a story of friendship. It's a classic story of courage. And a world of danger, where courage is rewarded. A motion picture for everyone to share. Discover the secret of Nim. And rediscover the child in us all.
Well, all those statements are true.
So
it's really a
crazy.
collection. It's
a movie for kids, and he's like rediscover the child in us all.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know where that was playing. General Hospital.
like whoever wrote that
whatever
was like,
afternoon.
I don't know.
But if you haven't seen it, it really is great. It's funny and scary.
It's a classic. Yeah, it's a dark for a children's movie.
There's a ton of awesome action.
My daughter watched it when she was a kid. They showed it at her summer daycare art studio thing she went to, and a bunch of the younger kids burst into tears at some of the
there's
scary parts.
There's some pretty frighteningly designed
Yeah, it's awesome.
creatures
though.
and spooky shit.
I mean, Don
for,
Bluth was on a roll then, and I think that movie's a classic. So yeah,
But yeah,
I love
so-
Secret of Nim.
Those are some of our favorite fantasy TV shows and movies, and let's check out some of Adult Swim Facebook choices.
Oh yeah, Princess Bride, Pirates of the Black Water is definitely a '90s kid pick. '90s. Steven Universe,
Nice.
an awesome fantasy show. Fifth
Fifth
Element,
Element.
sort of more science fiction, but
Yeah.
kind of fantasy too. I get it. Also a great movie, and Game of Thrones. I mean, fairly solid choices except for the '90s.
We'll call
kids.
it 82%
Yeah, pretty good.
on there.
Pretty good.
And then we'll check out Toonami Facebook, which is facebook.com/Toonami.
Labyrinth. Labyrinth. Man, I'll tell you what. 90s and 80s kids, particularly ladies, they love them some Labyrinth. It's that Bowie, baby. But
I like Labyrinth.
But I want to tell you, that's not a good movie.
It's not, but
at all.
I like
That
it.
is not a good movie.
Inuyasha.
Inuyasha, I should have thought of. I saw that after we had picked, and I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
It's better than Lodos War, and it's fantasy, and it's truly like from Japanese cultural,
Right,
traditions.
actual, yeah.
Berserk, of course, which is another awesome,
Yeah.
incredibly hyper-violent fantasy.
What we should do a topic that's favorite shows with exclamation points at the end at some point.
Tenchi
before this is over.
Muyo, which I always thought of as more science fiction because on Earth there's no like magic, but Ryoko does
Yeah,
cast
I think-
spells, so it's basically fantasy. And then, of course, Game of Thrones. You know what's crazy to me? Lord of the Rings didn't appear on either of those.
Well, I mean, it's.
I guess it's just too obvious. It's like, yeah, everyone knows Lord of the Rings.
But I mean, it's also. I think the stain of The Hobbit may have adversely affected.
Yeah, it's true.
The youngers.
It's true. 6 years of Hobbit dog shit might have covered Lord of the Rings in shit.
You're gonna have to. History is gonna have to
Yeah.
take a little more
True.
time with that.
True.
But anyway, that's our fantasy looks, and now our look forward for this week's sneak peek, which is not actually going to go on air, or is?
No, this isn't going to go on air. You will only see this here, or
Yeah.
I guess we'll post it at Toonami.com at some point. But basically, we got a lot of requests from you guys to sort of give you guys a peek into the making of Intruder 2. And while we were making it, we took a little bit of time to pull some footage. And so Sarah has very nicely cut together and narrated a little sort of just a really light speed version of something that's taken us a year and a half. But if you guys, for those of you who want to know sort of how the Intruder came together in a general way, this is a good sort of little sneak peek. Then we'll talk about it a little more afterwards. So here's that.
Hey everybody, it's Sarah over at Toonami. We're just finishing up on Intruder 2 and thought we'd take you on a little behind-the-scenes tour of how it all got made. So it all starts with a script, which Jason and Gil worked on for about a year. Then they had storyboards made up, and an initial read with the VO talent, Steve and Dana.
Please identify yourself. Your distress beacon has been activated.
She's still coming closer. Take us down to low burn and put her up on the monitor.
They then send those two elements to me, and I lay out how long each shot should take. I match up the voiceover with the corresponding shots, and that creates an animatic that I then send to our 3D team so that they can create the final animation. The 3D team starts fleshing out all of the models, adding some texturing, shading, and rigging everything for animation. This is an incredibly fluid time right now. Lines change and timings change. The animation team sends along wireframes, which are low-resolution renders for Jason and Gil to see if they like how it looks, if they want to change anything, speed anything up, get rid of anything. Once that's all finalized, they're going to add in some more shading, more textures, lighting, render it all out, and then they're going to send the final animation to me, and then I will pass it immediately on to Brent so that he can do his part.
Hey, I'm Brent. I'm the sound designer and composer for Adult Swim and Toonami. So when Sarah is done with her part, she ships it over to me, and I take a look at everything and decide what it needs to sound like. So that's starting with the background, ship noises, to servos, computer sounds, footsteps, weapons, every little sound that you hear. And then I finish it off by doing all the music and layering all that together, massaging it into a nice cohesive whole, and then when that has been signed off on, I send it back over to Sarah.
Never underestimate the importance of sound design. It's how you go from sounding like this
Tom, it's firing on us. Powering up shields.
to sounding like this.
Tom, it's firing on us. Powering up shields.
So that's how it all got made. I hope you enjoyed this little peek behind the curtain, and don't forget to watch Intruder 2, premiering November 7th at midnight.
So yeah, a look at the sort of 5-second bit of the 2-year process of putting together Intruder 2. But it is starting this Saturday night at midnight, right at midnight. So probably
Don't be
smarter
late.
to get there about 11:55, settle in.
Get your popcorn.
Yeah, don't
The first episode is like, what, 2 minutes?
2 and some change.
2 and some change. So it's going to only be about a minute more than what those of you who've already seen the sneak peek we showed.
But a whole lot has changed.
And then every week's subsequent Intruder episode will air inside the first break of Dragon Ball Z Kai, or whatever the show is.
Yeah.
The first show of the night.
The first show of the night, and then it'll be a recap right at midnight to catch you up if, for whatever
In case
reason
you
you
missed it.
haven't seen it, or you want to see it again, or you just need a little refresher.
You need to, exactly. You catch up on all the depth of storytelling.
Figure out exactly what all's going on.
And then, of course, we already talked about the Toonami comic last week, which is a side story involving Tom 4, and that goes live this Saturday
at sometime. If it's not up on Saturday, it'll still be up on Saturday. So, Sean, make sure it happens on Saturday.
It goes live at midnight on Toonami.com. You can check it out then, and it's another story of Tom 4, D, and Flash versus the Intruder.
And if you don't have the Toonami app, it is in the App Store and the Google Play Store now. I got to get my terminology correct.
Download it, let Sean Solis at Sean Solis.
No, it's Salem Solis.
Salem Solis.
SALEMSOLACE.
Let him know if you have any issues, questions, or problems. He's the person in charge of that.
Or if you actually like it, you can also let him know.
Don't let him know that.
And you won't have to worry about that.
Don't encourage him. Okay, so the final little bit we have for you tonight is a Bloom Room.
Correct. This is a look back at Steve's sort of
I'll look
previous...
back at 10 Days of My Life by Steve
It's crazy how much he packs into 10 days. But this is his sort of last 2 weeks of moving and going to conventions and settling into his new house. And we have that address that we can give out to everybody. Is that,
his home address?
We'll put it up on the screen
Steve
after
lives.
this.
Please go visit him any hour of the day or night.
He's
He'd be happy
always
to
happy
see
to
you.
get guests at the home. So let's check out this Bloom Room.
Hey, Bloom Room. So I'm sitting here in my brand new office, just moved, nothing on the walls. Kind of nice to have a fresh palette. And these last couple of weeks have been kind of a whirlwind. It's been a bit of a mishmash, lots of different things happening. So instead of concentrating on one event, I'm going to show you what I did for the last 10 days or so. Starting with a live tweeting event for Star Wars Rebels with my pals Tia Serkar, who plays Sabine on the show, and Vanessa Marshall, who plays Hera. We tweeted our butts off for the season premiere from Disney XD Studios. It was stupid fun. Then it was on to Dallas for Dallas Fan Days in Irving, Texas.
On my way to Dallas for Dallas Fan Days, also known as Dallas Comic-Con. Anyone who knows me knows that I like breaking the rules. I thought things were bigger in Texas. Rule number 1 broken. Achievement unlocked.
As usual, there are fan shenanigans. And celebrity shenanigans. This time, it was with John Rhys Davies. And with Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor. So there's actually 2 stories about Xena Warrior Princess. The first one is that I used to work on that show in a Walla group, doing a lot of the sound effects for the guys who were getting beaten up or killed by Xena and her crew. So if you saw a guy up in a tree getting an arrow to the chest, that was me that you heard going onto the ground, along with a bunch of other people. But there's an even better story. This one isn't my story, it's actually Mary Elizabeth's story. But it's so good and so amazing and really pertains to everything that we do in this business. So here's Mary's story about Lucy Lawless and Xena.
I played Pandora's granddaughter whose grandmother was Pandora, and she opened the box and destroyed it. So I had lines like, "You have no idea what it's like to be cursed with this box." Not the best thing you want your mom to hear come out of your mouth. But wink, wink. So in one of the first scenes, the character was being hanged on a horse, and they had me in a noose with my hands tied behind my back, and on a horse named Cher, who was a horse named Cher, and the ground was really unstable, it was really muddy, and she was really uncomfortable. Meanwhile, I'm getting my neck pulled with my hands tied behind my back, and after about half hour, 40 minutes, I said, I have to get off, because I'm freaked out. She's freaked out because she can tell that I'm freaked out, and I need to get off. So I did get off, and they decided to hobble the horse, which means they tied its back legs together, and maybe the front ones, I can't remember, put me back up on the horse, and as I was reaching for the noose, the thing, poor Cher, reared up, fell over on top of me, dislocated my kneecap. Lucy Lawless came running up and said, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I think I'm fine." This day player pulled me out as I saw hooves coming down. It was a very tragic moment. And because of that, I came back to Los Angeles and I started doing voiceover because it dislocated my kneecap and I took a while to rehab. So that's what led to my voiceover career, and it changed everything. The minute I started doing voiceover, it led to directing, and I knew that that's what I was supposed to be doing for the rest of my life, was that. So yesterday in the green room, I haven't seen Lucy or Renee in 20 years. It was 20 years ago. And I walked up and told Renee, and "Hi, Renee, I was on the show." She's like, "Of course you were." And, "Oh, it's so good to see you." And Lucy came in, and I walked up to her, and I said, "Hi, Lucy, I was actually on an episode of Xena." And she goes, "Oh, tell me your name." "Did we try and hang you?" And I was like that. It was just, the look on her face from smiling kind to, "Oh my God." And she actually teared up and she goes, I was afraid I killed you. Can I take a picture with you so I can send it to my husband, Robert, so that he knows that you're okay. We have been thinking about that change. The whole set, it changed everything that day because it was so unsafe and everything. And I'm just so happy that you're alive. And I was like, it was kind of an amazing thing.
Mary McGlynn does her own stunts.
My pal Teresa Delgado showed up to help me out at the con. She runs an incredible podcast called Fangirls Going Rogue, and you can find her at Ice Cold Penguin on Twitter. Check her out. Really cool chick. Then back to Los Angeles for Logic's wedding. That's right, my buddy Logic is a married man now. And finally, to cap it all off, my mom goes into surgery for a full hip replacement, and I move. That's it for the Bloom Room for this week. Let's see what happens next time. On my way to Anime USA in Washington, D.C. See you then.
I also have a a Xena Warrior Princess story that I'll tell at another time.
Oh, interesting.
Of being on the set of that show myself.
I don't have any stories about Xena.
But yeah, that's for another time. But hopefully you have enjoyed this episode of Toonami Preflight, and we will for sure see you Saturday night at midnight for the beginning of Intruder 2.
Yep.
And hopefully you enjoyed it.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks. See you guys. Hello and welcome to episode 36 of Toonami Preflight. I'm Gil Austin.
I'm Jason DeMarco.
And in honor of Halloween, we are finishing up with our most terrifying moments. We're going to talk about Hamtaro.
Truly terrifying
We're
show.
going to talk about our and some of your favorite ghost story movies. We've got a sneak peek at the Toonami comic.
Finally.
After only a month or so wait, we were able to crank out an excellent comic book. And then if you haven't seen it before, or even if you have, we've got all of the original The Intruder for the tail end of the piece for today's episode. So let's get into Hamtaro.
So Hamtaro premiered on Toonami in 2003? 2002, and it premiered in Japan in 1997 and became
It ran for
big.
6 seasons.
Yeah, movies,
Had
video
movies,
games.
video games, a couple OVAs, and
Yeah.
we ran it for about 6 months.
And as I recall, our head of programming at the time, and I can't remember exactly who it was, basically didn't give us a choice. They were just like, we're going to run this because we want to. They were worried, Toonami, I believe they were worried Toonami was skewing older.
Yeah, the focus for Cartoon Network was
younger.
Kids 6 to 11, and ours was a little bit more like 9 to 14. So
Yeah.
the
And
idea
they
was
felt
to
we
go
were-
after the 4-year-old
And they
Hamtaro
felt,
fan.
and they felt we were too boy heavy, so of course the answer was to put Hamtaro in because they assumed, rightfully or wrongly, that more female audience members would want to see Hamtaro. They assumed incorrectly.
Turns out nobody wanted
to see Hamtaro. So we had basically no say, and we're told, here, you're putting this on. And we all were really pretty annoyed by it, as I recall. We just thought it didn't make any sense for Toonami. Not that any of us had anything against the show.
Yeah.
'Cause the show's actually cute if you're wanting to watch
if you want to watch
little
a
kids,
cute little kid show.
a little kid show about hamsters and their adventures. It's very cute, and it's
The
very,
hams go out on...
the hams, that's what they're called, and it's very relaxing. But even now, looking back on it, it feels like one of the dumbest programming decisions involving Toonami. Because like even
that's saying something.
Even Woolan Warriors, which was another legendary flop for us, like you could maybe, it was terrible, but you could be like,
it was
well,
at least in the
nothing
same ballpark.
genre, yeah, and you could say, well, no one's ever seen anything like this before. Who knows? Maybe it'll take off. Hamtaro's literally, it's quite obvious it's for very young children, and that shouldn't be in a block of action cartoons next to Dragon Ball Z. Like,
I do want to paint a wall in our office with this
with
background
Hamtaro
here because
it's very, like I
soothing.
said, it's very relaxing. I have from the days where we got Hamtaro. The one good thing about it was we got a ton of like swag because Hamtaro was a huge merchandising property back in the day. So I have a Hamtaro tie, like a nice Hamtaro tie that I've worn to business meetings.
Did anyone notice?
No one but me. I mean, I also had a really cute Hamtaro stuffed animal plushie that I gave to my daughter that she loved. Like Hamtaro's great. I like Hamtaro. I just didn't think it belonged to Toonami.
Yeah. So
So we
have a promo illustrating.
We translated our annoyance into a mildly amusing open for the show, where even Tom himself is like, "What the are we doing here?" Is basically the vibe we were trying to get across. So none of those heads of programming work here anymore, so they can't be mad at us for talking shit.
Are we supposed to swear this much?
They were wrong.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and show that original Hamtaro open.
What's going on here? Well, they are kind of cute.
It's a great soundbite.
Even the quote, if I weren't so excited, I'd be confused. It's
like
totally
a
like
potty training song.
Yeah. It was just one of several times we quietly stuck it to our programming people and we didn't agree with their decisions. So yeah, a cute show.
Yeah,
it's it only lasted one season in the U.S., but
I think it was 2, but it was still only like
not a ton of episodes.
30 something. I guess it was 52.
You could still watch it on Netflix.
There's 296 Hamtaros. So
are they all dubbed?
No.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
I don't think you need the sub is pretty good.
I'm sure. I mean, the dub's clearly inferior. For Hamtaro, I need the original sub so you can get the humor. Humor doesn't translate as well culturally.
Yeah, the Alvin and the Chipmunks plugin is tough too.
But we thought it was an appropriate show to talk about on a spooky day of pre-flight because it terrified the crap out of us putting that
Gather
on.
around the campfire as we tell you a story.
The dark tale of Hamtaro. Look at the blood in the background. That's awesome. So yeah, that's. I mean, there's really not much. What's more to say about Hamtaro? The Hams. They have adventures. They're cute.
There's he's owned by Laura.
Yeah, it's like a little. It's like Toy Story, but it's hamsters.
Yeah,
it's like
but there's some wild ones.
Yeah, it's like when the humans are away, the hamsters all have crazy mad adventures. Yeah. And then they come home in time for the human to be like, "Oh, what you been doing all day?"
Just been sitting in your little hamster wheel all day.
Not a Toonami show. Never belonged on Toonami. But an amusing anecdote.
Sure.
So why don't we move on to the main focus of today's episode of Preflight, which is the question we asked: what's your favorite ghost story? Now, people rightfully assumed we meant movies or TV shows.
Yeah.
How do you feel about ghosts in general? Actually, the way to begin this is, do you believe in ghosts?
No, but my wife does. Anytime we go to like some house that's out in somewhere, she's like, "Oh yeah, like I had a dream and there was like the little girl who died." I'm like, "That didn't happen. None of that's true."
And do you tell her that?
Yeah.
And what does she say to you?
She says that I'm wrong.
Cool.
She was raised Catholic in the Northeast, which I think typically means you believe in ghosts. If you're raised in the 70s, in that time, my anecdotal experience has been most people feel like that's
I think more.
true.
I certainly think people that were raised in a religion are more likely to believe it. But I know a lot of Southern Baptists or
I'm not saying it's
Southerners.
exclusion, but like I
think if you had a little bit of religion in your life, you're more open to the idea that there are other forces, and then of course ghosts.
Like The Exorcist is my wife Annie's like horrible.
Oh yeah, well that's different because that's an exorcism story.
So it's
that's
like,
demons kill. Right. Let's be real.
So,
I mean, like come on, get your together.
The occult.
When I grew up in the Northeast, I was raised as a Catholic, and The Exorcist was the scariest ever for me as a kid and all of my friends. That is definitely a Northeastern Catholic thing because when you're raised Catholic, they believe in the devil.
But
and
like
they believe
that
you
same
can get
sort of thing for ghosts,
devil.
like that ghosts possess houses and spirits live in places like that is
the cold spot.
Yeah, like no, doesn't. Rodents of unusual size, I don't think they exist.
I don't really believe in ghosts either. I do have an overactive imagination, so when I get to a place in my house and something's off, I do. My brain's like, just get out of the room. But it's less
wiggy.
it's less about ghosts than it is about.
I say that under the lights of a
Sure.
sort of television studio
I
in
think,
broad daylight.
now you're going to get tracked by a ghost all night. I do believe maybe there are phenomena we don't understand. I don't know if they're ghosts or multiple dimensions or whatever. But I don't believe in ghosts haunting places.
I believe in the Richard Dreyfuss Always style of ghosts, where you come back and you help somebody and you just
wants to help his ex-wife.
You just
wear his
whisper
cool fighter
people,
jacket.
yeah.
Well, why don't we talk about some of our favorite ghost stories in popular culture, and we can explore these concepts further. So, I'll go first. You want?
Okay. Yes.
So, in choosing mine, I had to go with my number one favorite ghost story, even though we've talked about this movie before. I think we were talking about the trailer, but The Shining, which is one of the greatest ghost stories of all time, concerning the Overlook Hotel, which is haunted by multiple ghosts, a veritable army of ghosts who want
treasure trove,
who want the soul of Danny Torrance, who is a young man that is brought to the hotel by his dad, the caretaker, and they basically possess the dad and make him try to kill Danny so that Danny has psychic powers. They want to absorb his powers and become more powerful. So, obviously a classic movie. I want to show just one of my favorite scenes that's... I just love the slow, creepy quality of this scene. So this is a scene where Jack Nicholson is the new caretaker, and he meets the ghost of the original caretaker who killed both of his wife and daughters with an axe, named Delbert Grady. And it's just a really cool, method of showing something haunted that isn't the classic, it's just a cooler way to do it. And Jack Nicholson's character is supposed to be drunk, so it's like he doesn't even know he's talking to a ghost, and he slowly figures it out, and it doesn't even bother him because he's drunk and crazy, which I think was a novel approach. So let's check out this scene from The Shining.
So awesome.
Yeah. So and then after that scene is where Delbert Grady plants the suggestion that Jack Nicholson should murder his own wife and child. So always a great creepy ghost story. Of course, I was going to talk about Poltergeist, but we just talked about it the last pre-flight, so enough humping of Poltergeist.
We got to start spreading these out.
Yeah,
more.
So we're gonna dig a little deeper for my next two choices. Now that we've gotten this sort of obvious choice out of the way. So the next one I want to talk about is a Japanese film called Cairo, aka Pulse. It was, I think it came out in 2006, but it was remade in English. For American audiences a couple years later, and that version I found vastly inferior. So this movie, Pulse, preceded The Ring and The Grudge. It was one of the initial wave of J-horror that, basically took over for 10 years, and that was sort of the wave of horror for a while. Certainly in Japan and then in the US. But so Pulse it's like two parallel storylines about basically people going on the net and finding these weird chat rooms where it's basically a looping image of them looking at the back of their own head into infinity, and then they see a man's face and it says, "Help me." Then these weird doors keep appearing with red outlines on them, and people that go into the doors disappear and never come back, and a bunch of people start killing themselves. And eventually becomes totally apocalyptic, like they start evacuating Tokyo because everyone is just killing themselves and all these red doors are appearing. But
that's troubling.
But it's basically a big metaphor for the net and disconnectedness and modern living and blah, blah, blah. But it's really well done. And it has got some truly terrifying scenes. Not in that it's like... they're not quite as over the top as The Grudge or The Ring with the creepy character crawling at you but they're just ghosts, and it's more that the way this director uses space and light in a really creepy way, and silence. There's long stretches of just silence. So here's one scene where a character basically finds a ghost that comes after him.
No, thank you.
Yeah, you just leave when you see that happening, folks. So, but I think it's a great movie. It still holds up as one of the better J-horror titles. And if you are really ready to be freaked the hell out, check it out. I really like it. Not an American-style ghost story. For a more American-style ghost story...
Excellent segue.
My third choice is the unheralded classic Candyman.
You think unheralded?
I mean, it was heralded at the time, but it's not been one that sort of
stood the test of
in
time.
the rear view. People don't talk about Candyman, but Candyman, directed by Bernard Rose.
That's 3 times you've said it.
Directed Immortal Beloved. You have to say it all in a row. And produced by Clive Barker. It was written and directed by Bernard Rose from a short story by Clive Barker. So Clive Barker usually gets the credit, but he actually just produced it. And sort of the story came from him, the original. But Candyman is about a graduate student in Chicago who is doing a thesis on urban legends. And she goes to the famous Cabrini Green housing projects. And there are these rash of kids who have been disappearing and mutilating or getting mutilated. And they keep saying this person, the Candyman, is responsible. She looks into the legend of the Candyman and finds out the Candyman is an ex-slave who became a painter, married a white woman, and then a bunch of racists cut his painting hand off and replaced it with a hook, and then covered him in honey and let bees sting him to death. So it turns out she's trying to convince everybody this is just an urban legend, obviously. The Candyman starts appearing to her and telling her that, I'm not an urban legend, and I need people to believe in me to continue my existence. So I'm going to convince them that I'm real by making it look like I'm going to basically make your life misery until you help me prove that I'm, real. So he starts murdering people and basically framing her for it. So she gets thrown in a mental institution, and he's coming to her all the time. He's kind of possessing her. It's a really shockingly effective thriller, and there's a lot of really great overhead photography that's kind of slow and creepy. There's a lot of good stuff about urban decay and how sort of forgotten people are in places like Cabrini Green. And at the time it was innovative because they got kind of some flack but from the NAACP for having a black villain, and basically they had to show the script to the NAACP, and they were like, once they read the script, they were like, oh yeah, you're fine. They were like, why can't a black man be a murderous villain? Is what they said to the director. So, and then the score is by Philip Glass, and it's one of Philip Glass's best-selling scores, and I think that the score and the way the film is made are sort of above the subject matter when you, it's sort of a sordid slasher movie type thing, which I love, but it's made with more of an eye towards making it a real film. So it's a nice tension between sort of more art house filmmaking and then just straight up slasher junk, which I love. So this stars Virginia Madsen as the student, and we have a scene here with him meeting her, Candyman meeting her for the first... Oh yeah, most important thing about Candyman, never do it. You say his name 5 times in the mirror, he will appear. I've never done that, and I never will. But they do it at the beginning of the movie, and you can just see the result. So let's just see what happens when you call his name. You messed up, lady. So that's Tony Todd, who plays the Candyman. Originally, this role was offered to Eddie Murphy, and he almost took it. But someone in his entourage was like, you never lived that down, man, being in a horror movie. And Eddie Murphy, of course, is such a gutless bastard when it comes to stuff like that. He was like, yeah, never mind. I'm going to do more comedy. But he would have been a pretty great Candyman, although it might have been weird for people to be scared of him since he's just, at the time, associated with comedy. So anyway... You
just laugh yourself to sleep and then covered in bees.
So a bunch of ghosts, vengeful ghosts, ghosts that want to kill humans and make them their friends. We'll end with this vengeful ghost. Those are some of my favorite ghost stories. And now I think we can throw to you, Gil.
Yeah, so I don't really believe in ghosts, but I do like ghost stories and ghost movies, and I'm definitely more of the this place is haunted than like this person is coming after me. But let's just play this first sort of clip and set up the rest of the ghost stories.
Oh, okay.
So, pretty much hands down the best ghost movie.
Clearly, it's in the title, man.
Yeah, it's how can you go wrong? So, anyway, actually, my favorite
terrifying for different reasons.
Terrifying ghost movie is I don't know what the difference in my head was for The Exorcist versus the Amityville Horror, but the Amityville Horror is the first one up, and this movie scared the pants off me when I was a kid. I didn't see the updated one.
It's terrible.
Which Actually, there was no real reason.
This movie's pretty terrible. But if you're from upstate New York, where I was, this takes place up north, and
yeah, so like this,
everyone you knew was like, no, that was based on real stuff, man.
Yeah, it was like everybody was like, yeah, no, my cousin knew a guy.
Yeah, like everybody, because that was a well-known story that whether you believe it's true or not, a well-reported story.
And even everybody making the movie were like, yeah, they're totally full of shit, but it's a fun movie.
Yeah,
I didn't realize until I was looking up stuff to see when it came out how much money Josh Brolin made off this movie. That he didn't. He cut his fee.
James Brolin, you mean?
Yeah. What I said.
Josh.
Oh yeah, he cut his fee to get the back end,
yeah.
and they said like in today's money it was like $75 million.
Yeah, he made a shit ton of money.
So nice job. But
good job, James Brolin.
This is the original trailer for the 1979 The Amityville Horror.
It's the kind of house they don't build anymore. A relic of a time when the world wasn't in such a hurry. When there was still time for a little charm and elegance. It has stood empty for a long while. And at the price, it is a bargain. For a growing young family, it is almost too good to be true. James Brolin, Margot Kidder, Rod Steiger, in the Amityville Horror. 28 days after the Lutz family moved into their dream house, were running for their lives. What happened to them is an experience in terror you will never forget, and you will believe in the Amityville Horror. From the best-selling book that made millions believe in the unbelievable, the Amityville Horror.
That they just run the full credits at the
just
trailer.
hold on. Just make sure you
the end is just like, you're going to believe it.
Craft Services by Sal Tabachnik.
I don't believe it, but it did scare me as a kid, and I
good horror movie. When the walls start bleeding.
Yeah.
Not good, not fun.
Usually a good sign
to leave, yeah.
Bitch, there is a ghost in the house. So up next for ghost movies is not a scary ghost movie, but is in fact the Busters of Ghosts.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Plenty of ghosts and Ghostbusters, yeah.
So
are you excited for the new Ghostbusters?
I think excited is probably too strong, but I want to see it.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I can't wait, but
I think it's cool that they're rebooting, not with the old.
I mean, based on all of the other Ghostbusters movies that they made, it certainly can't
be worse than Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, that it's just and then the Ghostbusters cartoon, like anything that's not this
movie
sucks.
Yeah, so hopefully they'll pull it together.
The people who are like outraged, I don't get like.
No, I like the actors. I like the actors that they have for the new Ghostbusters.
Yeah, so I will see it, but you and I will see the trailer. I don't remember what I picked for this, but Ghostbusters. Check it out.
Ghosts, they're real. They're me. They're here. Ghostbusters. They catch the ghost that won't stay dead. They're armed. They're dangerous. They're professionals. They're all that stands between you and the end of the world. Ghostbusters. Starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis. Ghostbusters.
Can't say yes. It's the 80s.
The effects don't quite hold up.
They hold up pretty well. I think some of them don't, but some of them do.
I think I saw that movie. I've seen that movie like 700 times.
I've seen it many, many times. Yeah.
But yeah, so Ghostbusters. What do you want?
Plenty of ghosts.
How about I don't remember the words of the song. Anyway, last ghost story movie for me is The Sixth Sense, which I feel like probably has been long enough to where we could get away without having to talk about the spoilers of the fact that Bruce Willis is in fact
I think it's been plenty long, so
a ghost. But so this is. There was a longer trailer that I remembered, but I couldn't find it. But this is the trailer that I could find that sort of sets up the whole movie and the last good M. Night Shyamalan movie.
No, the last good M. Night Shyamalan movie was Unbreakable.
All right, that's fair. So let's play this trailer and then we can
Signs
talk about
wasn't
it.
bad either. Anyway,
That's kind of a stupid idea, but it's a good movie. Haley Joel Osment, and his second most famous role after voice of Takashi on IGPX. But yeah, I think that's Unbreakable. It would be the last good in my channel.
I actually don't like The Sixth Sense.
Did you at the time?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, it's like one of those movies you watch once and you're like, for me, it was one of those movies you watch once and you're like, clever.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
I mean,
but like, it's so mopey. Like, I tried to watch it again and I was just like, that's one of those movies where once you know the twist, the rewatchability is like almost zero because you're like,
you see dead people.
It's just everybody. It's like everyone. It's the kid moping, Bruce Willis moping, all the damn ghost moping. It's a lot of ghost moping with not like scary, gory stuff. Which is
ghost moping. I think should
ghost
be
mopes. I'm not into ghost mopes.
The name of our next screenplay
ghost
that we
moping.
shop around. That'll be the topic for episode 142.
Yeah, ghost mopes. Ghost mopes, not so much my deal. But I mean, a very well received movie, a massive hit.
Yeah,
you know. I see dead people
for
years. People still make that joke now. So clever twist.
16 years later, yeah.
Are we going to talk about the twist? Because you said you were going to talk about the twist.
Talked about So it's Bruce Willis is in fact
a ghost. That's what happens at the end.
He's helping him.
One of them.
He's been helping him the whole time.
Yeah, but that created M. Night Shyamalan's career, basically. That he's still. Chugging along.
Good for him.
Yeah.
So now let's look at some of your favorite ghost story moments.
Adult Swim top 5 ghost stories. Frighteners, come on. That's just nerds. Like, that's a fun movie, but best ghost story, that's just like, oh, Peter Jackson. Sixth Sense. I see Adult Swim Facebook has a sense of humor as well with Ghost. Ghostbusters and 13 Ghosts is a terrible movie, and that's a bad choice for everyone that made that choice.
It feels like maybe Adult
You're a
Swim
bad
Facebook
person.
fell into the favorite movies with the word ghost in the title, not necessarily favorite
I don't know,
ghost
maybe there's
stories.
some people who really think 13 Ghosts is some dope-ass shit, but those people, they don't know much.
All right. And then Toonami Facebook choices.
Ghost stories. Are You Afraid of the Dark, which is a 90s kids show, but 90s kids, I think,
representing
love it.
on the internet.
Nightmare on Elm Street, which is one I almost chose, so excellent choice because Freddy Krueger.
Nightmare on Elm Street and Poltergeist, I think, would, if we hadn't already talked about them several times, would have been...
Freddy Krueger
might have edged out Ghost for me. But
Freddy Krueger, great vengeful ghost, one of my favorites.
Paranorman, a good movie, I wouldn't have...
I don't think of it as a ghost story.
Movie,
I mean, it's more of it is a supernatural story. So, but it's a great movie.
Yeah,
and of course, Poltergeist, not the remake. I'm assuming they meant the original.
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
Benefit of the doubt. Toonami fans know what's up. So, great job. Thank you everybody for putting in your choices, right or wrong. If you
are you talking to me now?
Yeah, if you enjoyed that, we will be putting up a question of the week for every week for Toonami Preflight on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Toonami, where you can go ahead and tell us what your favorite whatever the hell is that week.
And we'll tell you some of our favorite whatever the hell it is that week.
That's what we're doing here. That's what we're engaged in.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
And now we will take a sneak peek of this coming weekend's goodie, which is
a short
aforementioned
goodie. Look at that. Look at that. Let's move out of the way of the artwork. Hey, that's the Intruder 2 comic cover. And guess who that is? That's Tom 4. So the Intruder 2 comic, which we're going to show you a spot for in a second, is going to premiere November 7th.
Everyone's holding up
November
fingers.
7th. And it will be available on Toonami.com for you to peruse in its entirety on that day. And basically it is a side story / prequel to what happens in The Intruder. It doesn't really connect directly, but it is an adventure that Tom, 4D, and Flash have, wherein they encounter a version of The Intruder. So if you've been
The Intruder.
Yeah, if you've been curious as to what D and Flash and Tom have been doing since they leaving the Toonami broadcast in 2008, this is one of many adventures that they've been having because they're still out there. So this comic took a long time to come together. It was going to be a bunch of different things. I kept changing my mind, frankly. We kept scrapping it. But I'm really happy with the way this one came out, and I hope you guys will agree it's a fun little adventure for Tom 4 fans, of which I know there aren't many, but you know, it's a free comic. What are you going to do?
And then this is the spot telling you how to get it,
So
which will be
let's check it out.
in a week.
You waited. Then you waited some more. But now it's time for the Toonami comic. Tom 4 Faces Down, The Intruder. Check it out at Toonami.com/comic, November 7th.
And it's called Tom 4 Redemption. Not that there's no real redemption happening. We just thought it was
It's
a cool sounding name.
It looks good on the
To be
comic.
honest, that's really all it is. So, yeah, that comic, if you're really into the idea of the Intruder, this is another Intruder adventure with the previous Tom that I think you guys might think is fun. And that comes out the same day as the Toonami app. So you're going to be quite busy leading up to the Intruder if you're a Toonami fan.
Toonami app's earlier, right?
Or maybe it isn't. I don't know.
Toonami app's the second.
Oh, Toonami app's the second. So the week before you get the app, you can play around with that.
Toonami app, November
Comic.
2nd. Comic, November 7th. Intruder 2, November 7th, midnight.
Yeah, it's going to be
Kicking
a
it
busy time for Toonami fans.
We probably should memorize those dates better than we have.
We can just make the shit and let other people memorize the dates.
Cool. Sounds like a plan.
So then we're going to wrap this one up. This is a short episode if you're going to be done now.
But you're not going to be done now.
You're not going to be done because people have been asking us, do I need to know the story of the original Intruder to follow along with this one? The answer is definitely not. That would be stupid. It's 15 years later. And also,
picks
it's
up
not
right where the Intruder
it's not that
left
big of
off.
a story anyways. We're not talking like Shakespeare. So, but we thought it would be nice if anybody wants to see it. There is a remastered. Fans have done a remastered version of the original Intruder, just putting the whole story together. It's about 20 minutes. If you want to see it, we're going to just say goodbye here and let it run. So if you're interested, Intruder is coming up, the original. If you're not, thanks for watching, and we appreciate your time, and we look forward to talking to you guys next week.
See ya.
Yeah, you know, on the phone they act one way, but what they write is totally different. I mean, what does she know? Huh, bubble-headed. They're not even in color.
Well, intruder alert.
What are you talking about?
I'm serious. Intruder alert.
Stop it and send in the clients. What is?
The hull has been breached. In the aft, on the 49th level, starboard side. I've sealed it off.
I'm going out there. There's gotta through the hole. We know where it is?
No idea. It doesn't show up. There's massive system disruption back there.
Any idea what it is?
No.
Okay, well, the hole is sealed, but keep the doors closed. I'm gonna go down there and check this thing out.
Tom?
Any readings?
No.
What then?
Please be careful. I've no idea what this thing is.
You worry too much. Open it up. Lights. Whoa, those lights are out?
They shouldn't be.
Hit the emergency lights.
Tom?
Hey, will you get me a jetpack out here?
On the way. What happened?
No idea. Let's see it.
The whole thing?
Yeah. Hey, you know where it is?
Yes, it's still on 49, but it's kind of on 48 and 50.
What?
It's growing.
Okay.
It keeps eating the glides.
Man, could have been handled better. This is the weirdest day. What does this thing want?
Tough to say. It ate through the hull quite easily. Maybe it's just hungry. It's formless.
How did I get blasted?
Carelessness.
Thanks. Now what do we do?
It's moving.
Where?
Heading down the ship's skeleton towards the starboard engine.
Sweet. Has it left the room on 49?
Affirmative.
I'm going down there. Whoa.
charging your blaster. Come on.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Let's,
It's eating through the ship, almost to the starboard engine. We need to stop it now.
Okay. I'm on my way.
Almost there. Tom?
Yeah?
Other way.
Right.
You know what? Come with me. Go check it out. Hey, go check it out. Oh man, this thing's got a lot bigger.
That door.
I don't think I can stop this thing.
Tom? Tom? I can't open that door. I need you on the bridge.
All right. This thing is officially making me crazy.
Whoa. What's going on?
You were destroyed.
What? I got destroyed?
Tom, the intruder has completely taken over the starboard engine. It's eating it as we speak. There's not much time.
Okay, so what do?
The starboard engine is totally inoperative. We have to cut that thing loose before it eats the whole ship.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, I'm not. We've run out of options.
But...
No, we've already lost a Tom and an engine. This is getting costly.
So what do I do?
You have to set charges on the starboard wing. One on the outside, one on the inside.
Why don't you set the one on the inside?
Because, Tom, I can't move.
Alright, let's get this show on the road.
Level AA-23.
That was easy enough.
3, 2, 1. The nearest station is 3 light years from here.
Great, right in our backyard.
There.
Punch it. Call him. Star Power, this is the Absolution.
Hello, Absolution.
We're on our way to you as we speak. I've lost an engine, so it may take a while. Can I get parts and service?
1 moment, please.
Parts and service.
Yeah, hi, this is the Absolution, L-Class Deep Space Explorer. We've lost our starboard engine and we need a replacement. So we won't be there for about a month.
Okay, then you want design?
I'd like to get the same ones we had.
Well, the model you guys been recalled.
Why?
Well, they're unstable after about 2 years. You'll get fluctuation in intermittent power output.
Well, we never had any problem.
Listen, buddy, I got calls on hold. You want designs or what?
Okay, what else you got?
Take a look.
We'll call you back.
Sure thing.
Sarah, which one do you like?
I don't know. Either way, we've got to get 2.
Yeah, they all look pretty good.
If only there was an easy way to pick.
Parts and service?
Hello.
Hey, this is the Absolution. We're ready. Can we get 2 of the Talon STs?
I thought you guys were going to go for those Harbor.
Hey, the people have spoken. We need a pair of the STs.
Oh, yeah, well, it's going to take a while, though.
Whatever.
All right, I'll get the bots up there right away.
to head out. Ready?
Yes, new engines are online.
I can't wait to open these babies up.
Absolution, you're clear for launch.
Acknowledged.
Hello and welcome to Preflight. This is our 35th episode. I am Gil Austin.
I'm Jason DeMarco.
And today we are going to be bearing a little bit of our souls.
Particularly Gil.
I may or may not be with you by the end of this broadcast. If I'm not, it's been an honor serving with you, sir. We are going to talk Blue Exorcist, which I do think I'll be able to make it through.
I think you'll be able to do that one.
We're going to talk our scariest movies, which there will be some surprises, I think, for most normal human beings from my list.
Yep.
Odds are the Toonami Facebook and Adult Swim Facebook will not mirror my choices. We have a sneak peek. We have several sneak peeks as we get into
We're sneaking and peeking, baby.
Intruder 2 season, always a festive time of year. We have a marathon promo. We've got a look from Dana. We have a mysterious to be determined Bloom Room. So it's quite the full show. If we want to start off with Blue Exorcist.
Blue Exorcist.
Is that how, I always said that wrong, I guess.
Blue Exorcist.
We showed Blue Exorcist in 2014.
Yeah, it was last year.
It aired in Japan in 2011, which is later than I thought. I was thinking that was an older show than it actually was until I was looking up based on
it was. I think the manga came out right before the show. Like it was like very quickly released, and it's a short series. It's a 25
episodes and an OVA, which we did not show the OVA.
And I like it. I'm just not like, you know, it didn't like, as I recall, it did fine in the ratings, but it didn't exactly burn up the charts. Like, it's not it's not a hugely beloved show or anything, but but most people seem to like it.
Yeah, I mean, it feels
scintillating insight for me.
And there we go. That's Blue Exorcist.
Okay,
hopefully you enjoy it. We ran it for
25 weeks,
half the year, and
25 weeks out of the year.
But
it turns out
it was. But I'm saying it never really wavered. It didn't really.
Oh yeah, it did
dip off.
Solid,
like it was
but not amazing the whole time.
It was a utility infielder.
Yeah, it wasn't
for
like
a championship team, but
it didn't. It didn't let us down, but it did good.
We have our 90-second promo. Is that the one?
Yeah. Why don't we show the? I don't know if it's a 90. I don't think it is.
If you're counting at home, use
I think it's
all
60.
your fingers and toes.
I think it's a 60. So let's show our Blue Exorcist promo, which gives a good overall sort of explanation of what the broad strokes of the show are, and then we can talk a little more about it.
For Ren Okumura's whole life, he's never been as good as his twin brother Yukio. Now, Yukio's headed off to the prestigious True Cross Academy. And Ren is headed nowhere until the day he learns the real truth about the world. There are demons amongst us. And the biggest demon of them all has his sights set on Ren. Now, if he's going to survive, he'll need to join the ranks of an ancient order. The Exorcists, the only ones powerful enough to stop the demon horde. School's in session, and it's gonna be a hell of a fight. Get ready for the series premiere of Blue Exorcist. Next Saturday at 1:30, you kick a lot of ass, or the devil knows you're dead. Only Toonami on Adult Swim.
Neither 60 nor 90, but under Price is Right rules, I went over, so Jason wins the Showcase Showdown within 10 seconds.
That last line doesn't make a lot of sense, but it sounds badass. I like it.
Yeah,
it doesn't really make any sense, but it's a cool line.
That's what I was going for.
So who made that promo? You and Johnny?
I wrote it, I believe Johnny edited it.
We
had seemingly 1.5 episodes.
I think
it's pretty much a 90 or a 70-second topical for the first episode.
Yeah, it's really. I think we had the first two.
The show changes a lot after that without really spoiling it. You get into sort of a.
It's an old show. If you're watching this, we're going to spoil it.
Sure, well, that's a fair warning. They get into the True Cross Academy, and Ren becomes a student to try to harness his demon powers and become better. And it's sort of a Soul Eatery.
Yeah, it is
Full
very
Metal Alchemist kind of.
It is very much Soul Eatery. But it's
feel to it.
But it's basically that Ren finds out he is the spawn of Satan, and that the devil intends to possess him and live in his body because there isn't a body that can hold Satan for very long, and that's why he created
Jason DeMar.
With Ren's mother, he created him as a vessel. So Ren decides to rebel against the devil, and in order to be able to battle him, he has to learn how to be an exorcist and have those powers. So he goes to this school where they train exorcists, and then you get into the differences between the two worlds. So there's like our world and then the world of the demons called Gehenna, and the demons can only come into our world by way of possessing other people, basically. So it's a lot. So then it settles into the rhythm of like you're a school anime where people are training and there's challenges and but a
some
cool
real
concept.
world life or death.
Yeah,
it feels inspired by a lot of different things, but it doesn't feel like it's a copy of something else.
No, I mean it feels very uniquely Japanese. Like only Japanese culture would create that story of like the spawn of Satan and have him be a school kid who's learning how
who still has to go to class.
Who's like learning how to hone his powers is like uniquely Japanese. That's Japanese fantasy all the way. And it feels very modern in terms of, it feels a lot like Sword Art or Soul Eater. There's like heightened emotion, Ren's always crying. He's always like, I can do it. Like there's a lot of like heightened teen emotion for better or worse, depending on how you feel about that. But a fun little action show, and I'm glad we got to show
definitely.
it.
And if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. I'm streaming on, platform near
I'm
you.
sure it'll be streaming
Funimation
on probably Preflight at some point, because I think we have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you haven't seen it, I'd say it's worth checking out.
Particularly if we're going to be showing it.
And I think we can just go ahead and move on to our question of the week, which you're going to have to go first. But the question is, what movie, continuing our October Halloween theme, what movie scared you the most, either as a child or an adult? In Gil's case, it's both.
It's both. I think typically you're more scared as a kid, or you're scared about specific things in movies, like movies that aren't really all that scary.
Yeah.
Impacted you in a very specific way, and you still are like, ugh!
You were young and you were watching something and you weren't ready, and then you saw something that
I did not see Exorcist when I was a kid, and I know that particularly if you were Catholic, raised in the Northeast, that movie scared the pants off everybody.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it until I was
scared me pretty bad.
Older, and it just seems hokey. But
first of all, you just talked shit about one of the greatest horror movies ever made,
Yeah.
so... He just called The Exorcist hokey. I want everybody to write that down.
Effects-wise, the effects that you go through don't scare you.
I don't feel you've seen it in a long time if you're talking this shit, and it's depressing me, so let's just move on.
All right, cool. So up first for me, for movies that scared me, I didn't say it was a bad movie.
You said hokey. I mean, that's... No one says, I love this movie, it's really hokey.
That's fair.
I know it's fair. Let's
it doesn't
move on.
scare me. I like the movie. One of my scariest movies is
the hokey classic.
The hokey classic, which actually is a hokey classic, Blair Witch Project, which I saw in the theater.
We're in the woods.
And it didn't really scare me that much at the time, but
I'm
it
scared.
did, like, when I went home that night, and then, like, if the next time I was in the woods, it was like, what the fuck is that sound?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It sets off that little rabbit part of my brain, lizard, like, yeah.
No, totally. You know what? My wife saw this movie, and she grew up in the woods, and she was like, that shit ain't scary. Big deal, the woods. Oh, no, I'm in the woods. She's like, I spent my whole life in the woods. So I think it's unique to, like, city folk.
Right.
People like you and I that like the idea of being lost in the woods is like, what would I do? You know, like, I think it definitely triggers that well.
We'll play the trailer, and then I'll tell a hilarious anecdote at the back end of this.
Cool, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Old trailer.
Yeah.
What an ass trailer.
Yeah, so it's
what is this?
But it did work. I mean, it was
No, Blair Witch.
back in '99.
Yeah, no, Blair Witch was the first really big found footage film, and they created the website, and people were actually wondering, because this was in the internet wasn't quite what it is today. People were actually wondering if this was real.
Was it
'cause
actually
was
real?
These found videotapes that these students shot, and they created a website that was basically as if it was real, and it built the anticipation for the movie in a way that just immediately the movie became a hit. Plus, it is a genuinely scary movie when you watch it.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater, and I was like, and as I walked out, I saw it during the day, and the sunshine just sort of instantly snapped the spell, and I was like, that wasn't so bad. And then I went home that night, and I had to go downstairs into my creepy basement to do laundry, and I was just like, nah, I'm not going down there tonight. I'm going down there tomorrow.
Just be real, you never did laundry anyway.
Well, that was the one time. It was supposed to be. That was the day. I'd been planning it for months. And went camping in the woods, and we went out to go get water and came back, and everybody we were with was gone, and it was just like lines and like a tarp, and nothing else was there. And my wife and I were like, that's kind of weird that everybody left. And then it was like 18 seconds of just pure terror until it was like, hey, we're over here, and they'd moved like 50 feet down. But I was like, they're all dead.
You were waiting to hear the rocks cracking,
shattering bottles against
yeah, the
wall,
ending
ready to go. So.
The ending of Blair Witch is pretty legitimately scary.
Yeah, so one of my scariest movies.
Pretty scary.
Up next is not a particularly scary movie, but one that frightened me a tremendous amount as a child.
Another hokey classic.
And this actually is a hokey classic. Is Dreamscape, the 1984.
That's a good still.
That
right
actually
there.
is terrifying.
No, God, green screen.
So we have
back when green screen technology
looked worse than if you were just
us doing this streaming show looks better than that.
So we have the, I guess, original trailer for Dreamscape that for some reason has a chyron of Dreamscape up the whole time.
Just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, I don't think that's how they did it, but whoever put it up on YouTube, that's how they did it. So let's check out the trailer.
Alex Gardner has a unique talent, and even he doesn't know what it can do. He is about to enter a world that no one has ever seen before. The world of your dreams. But Alex will make a discovery more frightening than any dream. And now, the only way out is to go back in to the dreamscape. Dennis Quaid, Kate Capshaw, Dreamscape. When you close your eyes, the adventure begins.
That's good old school Hollywood tag writing right there,
that's
baby.
to say it's
When you close your eyes,
fall asleep in this movie. Oh wait, no, don't do
adventure
that.
begins.
But I saw that movie
It's a
with
good
my
ending.
brother,
That's
and
good
I
one.
was in, I guess, this came out in '84, so I was like in 4th or 5th grade, and it really scared me. And my brother had 2 beds in his room, and I was like, "Can I sleep in your room?" And he's like, "No," and he slammed the door in my face. So I slept outside
as any
his.
good brother, as any brother.
I slept
should.
outside on the floor of his room,
Yeah.
and like at one point I was like, "Wait, I'm too close. He can jump into my dreams." So it's like that little kid thing, but
I was
not particularly a scary movie, but it
not a
it
scary
affected
movie.
me in a tremendous way.
Well, what
which is
scared
a
you?
perfect.
The dogs or the dude turning into a serpent man or
I think it was just
the
the
guy from the
idea
Warriors?
of that you would grow up to be such a mean dream jumper if you were such a fun, hilarious Warriors
yeah,
kid.
yeah.
I think it was the idea that people could enter your dreams and not for
Good reasons.
good reasons. The same sort of like Freddy Krueger kind of thing, where it's like at that last, like right as you're falling asleep, hey, you might die. What?
Yeah.
But anyway, so Dreamscape, and now we will transition
A more personal film,
To-
an adult fear
to the
Gil's
the
adult
all-time
fears.
scariest movie of all time, A Beautiful Mind. This we'll play the scene, and then I'll just talk a little bit about
He's gonna
what
break into
this
a
is.
cold sweat.
And yeah, I mean, watching this, finding the clip, I didn't honestly even watch the clip all the way through. I was like, nah, okay, this is the one. So let's roll it, and we'll see if I'm still here when it comes back.
Just a peek into your future.
Yeah, pretty much. Luckily, I think
My
I'm
name's
old
Gil
enough where it
Austin.
won't be.
I'm being held against my will.
But yeah, when I saw
Oh,
that
no,
movie
you're
in
never
the theater,
too old, Gil.
I got up and left.
In the middle of the movie?
And then I came back in. And the craziest thing is when I
Who
went
were
out,
you with?
my wife.
And what was
I
she like? What
I
the
leaned
hell
over and
are
I
you
was
doing?
like, don't ever take me to a movie like this again. And I got up and walked out. And then I saw somebody I hadn't seen in like 15 years. And I was like, ah! And then I went back in and everything was okay. But that
And what
movie,
does Annie, your wife, think about this?
she thinks it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
So your fear is just that you won't. One day you'll find out that you don't know your own mind as well as you thought you would. Or
I don't know
that
if it's that specific or if it's just like
the idea of
yeah.
you imagine something that's real that's not.
Or yeah, like you just wake up and it's like, oh no, that's all. You're just totally batshit crazy. I think I have an unhealthy fear of losing my mind. So here we go.
I think that's pretty hilarious too.
It's quite a breakthrough. I'm glad everyone was able to be here for it.
Not a bad movie, not a particularly great one, but
No, and watching that scene didn't scare me. It didn't like I'm not
an odd movie.
Cold sweats, but
An odd movie to find
at the time,
terrifying.
it's been
It came out like 10 years.
2001, so
Yeah.
it's 15 years.
And now you're sort of able to look at it.
Yeah, I still would never watch that movie all the way through.
But then,
again,
but then, like Fight Club doesn't bother you.
no,
Even though
because I
it's-
think that's such a like, hey,
It's a
kind
black
of thing.
black
Yeah.
comedy.
This was more like
It's a drama.
Yeah, he's drooling on himself.
Have
and
you
being
watched? Did you
Dracula.
see Take Shelter?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So you can't. Yeah. All right. Well, that's Gil has revealed something about himself. Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice touch. Thanks for driving me crazy.
So now my choices are a little more
slightly more,
a little more prosaic, But I have one that's more of an adult fear, and then I have two that were childhood fears. So let's go ahead and we'll start with my first selection of the movies that were the ones that scared me the most, which is an old 1970s made-for-TV film called Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, which this was remade, produced anyway, by Guillermo del Toro a year or two ago, and I never saw the remake. It was, I heard, a piece of junk, so I didn't watch it. But basically, the premise of this movie is that a newlywed couple moves into a house that has a weird, creepy basement, and the caretaker, and it's been like walled off, and the caretaker's like, don't go in there, you don't want to mess with that. And they're like, oh, okay. They don't think anything of it. And somehow by moving in, they awaken these creatures who are little demons who live in this basement. They're these little hairy creatures, and they basically torture the wife. And her husband doesn't believe her because, of course, it's the 70s. So he's like, you're hysterical. Stop being hysterical. I've got my work to do. And they are following her around. And the way that they're whispering and stuff is just intensely creepy because they're these little goblin-type creatures. They never really show them because it was a made-for-TV movie from the 70s, and they didn't have
They had
money.
$9.
And I must have been, I think this was made in 74, but I think it reran, back in the day, they would rerun TV movies, especially around Halloween, holiday seasons. So I caught it one night when my parents had fallen asleep in front of the TV, and I was alone, they were sleeping, and I was like, ooh, what's this? And I watched it, and it scared the ever-loving shit out of me. And for like, I don't even know, like a year, I couldn't sleep with my lights off because I would just imagine these little creatures whispering to me, because that's what
and then the wind blows and you start
that's what they do in
the
the movie. They're just like, let's kill her, let's get her. Like, it's totally, that's the only part that may be legit creepy as an adult. I've watched it as an adult, and of course, it's like, why was I ever scared of this? But the idea of little monsters running around that I don't see is still
can barely hear.
Very creepy to me now. So here's a pretty bad. I think this is a clip from it, but it's got like Spanish subtitles because this is all I could find. So bear with us. It's a TV movie from the 70s, for God's sakes. I'm just happy someone put it up. But it took me years to even find out what this movie was, and I didn't even know until I read about the Guillermo del Toro movie and that it was a remake of a 70s. And I was like, oh my God! Yeah. So check this out. Her husband's just a total dick, too. He's from My Three Sons, the old 70s show. So, I mean, if you're, like, it's pretty goofy, obviously, but if you're 5 years old, it's just enough nightmare fuel.
Yeah, and it's late at night.
Yeah, like.
And you're passing out.
Man. So, on to my next choice, which is more of something that I experienced as an adult human, which is the Sarah Michelle Gellar remake of the classic J-horror film The Grudge. The Grudge, I have seen the original Japanese versions of The Grudge and the sequels, and they're scary as hell too. But for some reason, the American one tweaked me. There's something about the dream logic of the Grudge movies and how things don't make sense, and there's no explanation for how or why the ghosts... There's like a broad explanation, but not really for how or why the ghosts are appearing. And it's not like it's a very good movie, but I saw this on a plane to Tokyo in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. on the plane, everyone's asleep. I'm like, I'll fire this up because I watch horror movies all the time. I watched it on the plane, and I was just going to the bathroom after the movie. I was like, when I like touched someone. Like, I was legit, even on the plane. And there are scenes in this movie that have stuck with me for years.
I would think the plane would be way scarier.
But you... So, I'm going to show you guys the scene that even now when I watch the scene, like watching it today, I'm going to think about it tonight before I go to sleep. Like, because it's just one of the scariest things I can think of, and it doesn't make sense, so it doesn't, like,
rationally.
Yeah, logic doesn't matter with these types of ghosts, and certainly these movies, because they don't really make sense. There's a dream logic about them, and to me that makes them far scarier. Like, I'm not scared that a monster is going to bust through my front door like I was when I was a kid, but something that
closet or under the bed, like
something that my brain can't wrap itself around and doesn't make sense is far scarier to me as an adult. So here's the very brief scene from The Grudge to give you a little taste. Terrifying. Just the idea that I'm going to lift up my blanket and there'll be some ghost lady there taking me down to hell. No. So
do you think the other people thought you were having a heart attack or something?
I mean,
like,
it
you sweating?
was a transcontinental flight to Tokyo. They were all asleep, or they were just groggy. I mean, by hour 10 of a 14-hour flight, you're just like...
You've already gone insane anyway.
So that probably had something to do with my mental state when I watched the film. But even now, I haven't watched it since then, because I'm like, nope.
I like The Grudge.
I mean, yeah, not a bad movie, not a bad remake, but and none of the other like J-horror movies like The Pulse or Ringu or The American Ring, none of those really scare me at all. I like them, but they don't, really freak me out. But The Grudge, for some reason. So then my third choice is a seminal one for any kid of my age and maybe even a little younger because the movie was so huge and ubiquitous. But of course, I'm talking about Poltergeist. Poltergeist. Yeah. One of the genius things about Poltergeist is that it's a ghost story, but it like has 5 or 6 different scenes that are totally different types of things that the Poltergeist does that are legit terrifying. Like there's a bunch of scenes based on many
like well-documented
childhood fears. Like there's the one of the tree outside the kid's window that comes to life. There's the burial ground. There's some gore where the guy rips his own face off. Like there's ghosts. There's like possession or like the entity when it's like messing with Jo Beth Williams. Like there's just so many different things that it's like they packed so many different things. Something's going to scare you in Poltergeist, especially when you're a kid. So this movie came out in like 82, I want to say. So I would have been like 9 years old or 10 years old. So I was a good age to be scared of this particular scene. I was also a kid with an active imagination, and I definitely related to this scene. And they do a great job. I'm talking about the little brother and the clown scene. And if you've seen Poltergeist, you know immediately what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, I'm about to show it to you. But they really set it up well in that the kid has this clown in his room. And it's like one of those things where at night during the day your childhood toys look fine, and then when the lights are out, you're like, what's that over there?
Yeah,
and it's like
particularly a clown. Like a creepy clown.
And it's your Chewbacca, you know. So they set up pretty well that he's kind of scared by this clown, and that he typically throws his jacket over it to cover it up before he goes to sleep.
But he's cool about it. I mean, it's not like he's scared.
Yeah.
It's just...
and then things go very wrong when the poltergeist gets a hold of it. So let's check out this scene. It's pretty good. Terrifying.
Yeah.
I love it. It not only is it the thing a lot of kids could relate to, which is the lights are out and something in your room looks creepy. It's the other thing of something under your bed. And then
it's like, oh, everything's fine.
Yeah, and the total silence. The whole scene is totally silent until the clown is choking him out and dragging him under the bed.
And then Snake, the poltergeist clown, snatches him at the very end.
Yeah, so awesome. I mean, Poltergeist, a classic for a reason. Not at all hokey. So yeah, those are some movies that scared the crap out of us. We're doing this pre-recorded, so we don't know what the Toonami and Adult Facebook choices were for your scariest movies. But let's go ahead and throw to that page. So I'm guessing Adult Swim's going to have another like 16 and pregnant type thing.
Yeah.
And Hardy Har Har.
I don't know if any of our choices will be on.
I don't know. I mean, maybe Poltergeist, because even for younger kids, it's still a movie a lot of people reference. But yeah, I bet
classic big screen Poltergeist remake.
I mean, I bet a lot of the same movies from our favorite horror movies one show up, like The Shining, you know, because The Shining's legit scary too. And then we can go to the Facebook Toonami page, always your best source for interacting with us. Unfortunately, at this moment, it's not. And I'm sure that these choices are more legit, so congrats, Toonami fans.
Well, I'm glad we made it through.
It was scary. It was
unscathed.
Tough. It was not. It was no joke, man. Scary things
good.
happened.
Yeah.
Are you sure I'm real?
No, but I'm good with it.
So why don't we go? We have several sneak peeks today, so let's go to the first of several sneak peeks. And the big, speaking of scary things going bump on your ship or something, we have our first teaser, the first official teaser for our upcoming total immersion event, Intruder 2, which is the sequel to The Intruder from a decade and a half ago. So this is the first teaser. This is new. This is going to have footage that some of you have probably already seen, but some of you haven't. So take a look, and we'll come back.
The Intruder 2 starts Saturday, November 7th at midnight.
So just a quick little tease. That's going to air this tomorrow. And that's a few weeks out. Intruder actually will start on
November 7th. And it'll be at midnight. The first episode will run at midnight.
Right at midnight. So be there.
Set your alarms.
Or be square.
Be ready.
And that will run for 7 weeks. So if you want to know the full story, you're going to have to keep checking in for 7 weeks. Or wait till it's over and watch them all in one go. But we'd really appreciate it if you would tune in for at least some of those 7 weeks if you like it. So, Gil, do you want to talk about the next?
Yes, so the next is a spot to download our first official, I don't even think there's an unofficial, but our first official Toonami app, which you can get in the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store on November 2nd. And will help you get deeper into the action for Intruder and then beyond. So here's a spot just sort of explaining what the app is and letting you know where you can get it. So check it out.
The Intruder is coming. To help you get closer to the action, Toonami's releasing our first ever mobile app. Amplify the signal, track the absolution, and wake up on time. Download the Toonami app in the App Store or Google Play Store starting November 2nd.
So yeah, it's more of a multi-tool app. It does a lot of things. It'll help you tweet. You can track the signal. It'll help you. There's an alarm clock. There's some ringtones. There's it's a sort of all-purpose, some Toonami chunk for you, and it's free. So hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Or send us $1 if you feel like it's such a great value that you want to make good. We appreciate it.
So that'll be available the week before Intruder premieres, just to give you something else to sort of tweet with and talk about the Intruder and hopefully enjoy.
And our final sneak peek is for our Akame ga Kill Marathon, which will run Halloween weekend, and it'll be also the what do we call it, the Found Hour when it's the
Daylight Savings. Yeah, so basically for Daylight Savings, we're not going to do anything crazy this year. We're just going to run. We're just going to run extra Akame ga Kill episodes. Toonami's doing really well, and we don't want to mess around by showing things that people might not watch. So
lesson learned.
So yeah, no surprises this year. No King Star Kings. No other possible things. Just an extra hour of Akame ga Kill marathon this Halloween night, and we have a promo for that. So let's go ahead and show that now.
It's a long Halloween, and Toonami has a treat just for you. Come kill 4.5 hours with Toonami in a special bonus hour event. The Akame ga Kill Marathon next Saturday at midnight.
So yeah, Dave, cut that 4.5 hours of 4.5 hours of Akame ga Kill as you hand out candy to the children's or whatever else you
come back from your Halloween party.
Halloween.
Eat your candy.
I guess
and watch
midnight would be a little late for trick or treating.
Eat your candy and watch some eye candy.
We're not
animation.
We're not here to judge your Halloween plans. But up next is Dana's look at a You Tweet Me Watch. Her look at Fist of the North Star, which
I'm anxious to see what she's going to say. I think she's going to have a different. I know she's going to have a different perspective from me. This Fist of the North Star is basically
your jam,
the world Jason wants to live in.
Right.
Period. The show. And so for Dana, I don't think maybe that's going to be the case.
The worlds you each want to live in are not necessarily the same world.
Not quite the same. Yeah, no, not really.
And it's not the newest of shows if you're just getting into it. Or movie rather.
It's an old ass show.
So let's check out and see what Dana has to say. Says.
Hey everybody, I'm talking to you from Fluorescent Lighting for another You Tweet Me Watch. Today's comes from a guy named Matt, a dear friend of ours, who says, Fist of the North Star, muscle man beating up many muscle men. Hashtag You Tweet Me Watch. How can I resist that? That's great reasoning. I want to see muscle man beating up many muscle men. Here we go. So what do we need to know? Akemi's Anime World, which is just some blog I found, gave this the genre ultra-violent post-apocalyptic martial arts. I'd say that's accurate. There is a series, Fist of the North Star. I watched the film, the 1986 animated film. Not the 1995 live action, but the 1986 animated film. Yeah, this is really violent. It's awesomely violent. It's so fun violent. So what goes on? Every living, breathing, anything thing gets totally annihilated or turned into a post-apocalyptic weirdo. I mean, as in, there are giants. There are people that have chests as big as 3 townhouses put together. What guides them? The Fist of the North Star. Sort of like this warlord character who governs the place, but he's kind of nice, actually. He's also got a really powerful, high-pitched kia. It sounds like, Ka! Let's run down some characters. We got Ken. Ken is the chosen master of Hakoto Shinken, aka Big Dipper God Fist. That's from Wikipedia, not from the film. He can withhold attacks on these various pressure points, and he can also radiate this fighting spirit aura. After getting betrayed, he falls down a ravine and then comes back as Bob Vila. And then once he's back as Bob Vila, he's got these eye-popping, skull-crushing, crazy powers. Then he loses a beard. He still has the... So he's bitter and helps Shen. Gives Shen the whole idea to go after Julia and totally try to crush Ken. So we got Jaggy, who's got this really, really busted face, and he conspires to kill Ken, as does Rao, but everybody just wants to kill Ken because they all want to be the Fist of the North Star. Shen wants to kill him. It's just crazy. Jaggy and Ken have a dispute in the past, and Ken beats Jaggy